Welcome, folks. I am Jabby Kuwait, joined by Achara Kirk. We're looking at a Screen Crush video today called Moon Knight Trailer Breakdown, Every Easter Egg, MCU Reference, and Midnight Suns Team Up Explained.
Rock.
And so, if you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and pretty please vote this up to let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching, because I think you are. Also, while you're subscribing and upvoting things, subscribe to Screen Crush. There's a link in the description below. You can click on that, give the original an upvote, subscribe to them from there, please. Screen Crush did a very, very thorough breakdown. The very first video I saw of theirs was the Matrix Resurrections breakdown. He explained it thoroughly, and I'm like, oh my god, I understand this movie now. I just want to say I really appreciated that video. It was something my brother Greg Alba sent me. This is my first reaction to a Screen Crush video. Let's check this out. Here we go.
Oh, it's cute. So retro.
Lens.
Hope you find it.
Thanks.
Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy, and let's talk about all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in the first full trailer.
I love the qualifying statement. All the Easter eggs you might have missed.
Yeah.
As opposed to you missed.
Oh, I see.
Usually there's confidence in the statement, and he's more like, I'm polite. You might have missed it, but maybe you got it, you know?
First of all, I'm going to give you a little background on the character's origin from the comics. So, if you are already a fully fledged Moon Knight fan wearing your Carnage Rocks t-shirt, then you can skip to the Easter egg time code listed down in the chapters. So in the comics, Moon Knight's real name was Mark Spector, and he was the son of a rabbi who fled from the Holocaust. When he became an adult, he became like Odysseus, a man skilled in all means of contending. He became a championship boxer, a Marine, CIA operative, and finally a mercenary. He took a job working for a guy named Raoul Bushman, a fella so extreme he had his entire face tattooed to look like a death's head mask. Long story short, Bushman's evil and his forces turned on Mark and left him for dead in the Egyptian desert. But then Mark found the temple of a moon god called Khonshu, and the god brought him back to life, on the condition that Mark would be his agent on Earth. Mark then dedicates his life to fighting crime and serving the moon god who lives inside his head. Now, apart from the vigilante Moon Knight, he also creates different secret identities for himself. A cab driver named Jake Lockley, who gathers info from the street, and a billionaire playboy named Stephen Grant, who became rich from investing all of Mark's mercenary money. This is also the identity that he uses for most of this trailer. The different identities are symbolic of the different phases of the moon.
Oh.
Which is a little different every time you look at it.
How many phases of the moon are there?
A lot.
Oh. I was like, I thought you'd have an exact number.
I think it's like 28 or something.
He could have 28 personalities.
The moon, like I said, it changes every day, right? But, you know, sometimes it's waxing, sometimes it's waning, then it gets to a full moon, and then it gets to a new moon, you know, and there are eclipses and stuff like that that happen.
Just never mind. Sorry. I was just trying to get more information.
Identities eventually gave Mark dissociative identity disorder, or DID, which used to be called multiple personality disorder. But later comics revealed that Mark didn't actually have DID, he was just the god Khonshu living inside of his head, and his mind splintered as a coping mechanism. Now in the comics, he has no powers except his natural fighting ability and...
I'm rich.
But he does have an array of gadgets and a plane that looks like a crescent moon. So let's talk about those Easter eggs. The trailer dropped on the first full moon of the year, which might have been a lucky coincidence.
Or it was the will of Khonshu.
We begin on Oscar Isaac, seen here as one of Moon Knight's other identities, Stephen Grant. Except here, he's not a billionaire, just a museum gift shop worker with no friends. If you notice, he is wearing a white t-shirt, and later on he's wearing a white hoodie under his jacket. These are both hints of the Moon Knight persona, itching away at his subconscious as he naturally chooses to wear white. And he's playing with a Rubik's Cube, which my wife pointed out has many faces just like Moon Knight. Each color of the cube is intermeshed and overlapping with the other, just like his identities are becoming intertwined. Now throughout the series, he'll have to solve the mystery of his identity, much like solving a Rubik's Cube.
I can't tell the difference between my waking life and dreams.
Notice that he's listening to a sleep sounds app on his phone. I can relate, I do that every night. Now the narrator with DID who can't sleep sounds an awful lot like the movie Fight Club. Spoilers for a 23-year-old film. In that movie, Ed Norton can't sleep and invents another persona for himself, Tyler Durden.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Perceived injustices of the world. Very similar to Mark Spector creating the persona of Moon Knight. Now one thing I loved about this trailer was the sound design. We begin with the ticking. Like a clock somewhere in the room when you're trying to sleep, and it's constantly reminding you that you have to wake up early and make a Moon Knight trailer breakdown. Then multiple voices overlap. Like his identities are fighting for dominance. But then, as the trailer goes on, more sounds are added to the soundscape, just as hints of Stephen's other identities start to bleed into his mind, until at the end, it's a cacophony of noise. And the only way to shut that noise off is to
embrace the chaos
and become Moon Knight. Now back to the beginning of this trailer. At this point, Steven must realize that he is leaving his bed and doing bad things when he thinks he's sleeping. So he puts painter's tape on his door so he will know if he leaves the apartment or if anyone else comes in. And he ties himself to the bed fastened with a combination lock. If he does have DID, then he's banking on one of his other identities not knowing the combination. Then we see him looking at a mirror which shows multiple reflections of himself. Mirrors appear all over this trailer to show his fractured identity. Some of these mirrors are obvious
that's
and some are
classic,
much more subtle,
actually.
but I'll talk about that as we go along. When he wakes up, notice that he's made a sprinkle of sand around his bed here. Subconsciously, maybe he created this in the shape of a crescent moon, like the insignia of Moon Knight. He's done this to show himself if he steps out of bed at night, like the Salt Trap in Paranormal Activity. This book on the right-hand side of the frame is called Adventures of the Soul, a book I have not read, but a little bit of research reveals that the book is about communicating with your spiritual self.
I love how he said that, because it sounded almost as if he was saying that he had read the book.
Yeah.
A book that I have not read. I mean, it's the tonality and cadence of that sentence sounded like he knew everything about the book.
But he doesn't. But like, good for him for,
He was being honest.
being honest.
Full disclosure, I don't know anything about this book.
I have not read this book.
In a way, learning to communicate with your own soul, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. The belief in a soul is essentially recognizing that there are spiritual beings that live inside of you, separate from your physical mind. This is an aspect of dualism, sort of like how Mark Spector has multiple identities living inside his head, and one of them is the spirit Khonshu. Now, soul dualism is the belief that we are inhabited by several different souls. There is the soul of the body and the wandering soul, or the free soul. Again, like Mark Spector sharing his thoughts with the spirit Khonshu.
I've never actually heard of this
haven't.
idea. But
That's interesting.
That is super fascinating stuff, because I've never been taught or introduced to that concept until this video of soul dualism, and it's got me super curious to learn about it now.
Me too.
Like with the origins of it and what exactly it would entail and mean, and if it speaks at all to, like if you suffered some kind of head injury or trauma and you come out as a different person, is it because one of the other souls cycling through took over? Kind of like that spinning head in Neverending Story.
Oh.
Now, the music in the trailer is Day and Night by Kid Cudi, a song that he wrote after the death of his uncle gave him insomnia, which he treated by smoking up. The music video shows his mind playing tricks on him as reality is transformed. People turn into animals or demons. His surroundings change, all similar to the visions that Stephen Grant sees throughout this trailer. Julian Castrusha on Twitter points out that the song choice marks him struggling through his multiple personality disorder. It's all feeling like a bad dream that only he is experiencing. And the song's lyrics match up perfectly with the trailer. Not just the day and night aspect, but there's lines like, I toss and turn, I keep stressing my mind, what?
What? It's great. Man down.
That was unexpected. It's almost like he's very aware that he's white and he's reading it, like
leaning in, You gotta do what you gotta do. Madness to magnet.
I don't know if he intended that to be funny, but that was really funny.
Madness to magnet keeps attracting me. What? Then he
What?
commutes to his job
Yeah,
at a
totally,
London
he knew it was
museum,
funny.
which Agua Perennis Cafe points out is the British Museum, with the largest collection of Egyptian
It
artifacts
is.
outside Egypt. He also has some observations about the gift shop, pointing out that this scarab is a symbol of immortality and resurrection. Remember, in the comics, Mark Spector was resurrected by the god Khonshu. And this box
Yes.
puzzle is of Anubis, the god of the underworld, with the head of a jackal. And this ain't the last time we're going to see Anubis in this trailer. When Mark approaches the museum, notice we see its reflection in a puddle. One of many hidden
Reflections
mirrors in the trailer.
again.
And when you're
Yeah.
sleep deprived, reality seems like a reflection of itself, like nothing is quite real. Now, do you remember the Eternals post-credits scene? We see Dane Whitman in the Natural History Museum in London, and he's about to touch this mystical sword called the Ebony Blade. When this happens,
Sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?
director Chloe Zhao confirmed that that is the voice of Mahershala Ali as Blade, who's due to get his own film, we don't know when. So we have two mystical characters in London at maybe the same time as Moon Knight, making me wonder if this is all building up toward a mystical team-up movie based on the Marvel Comics Midnight Suns.
Yes, please.
Fingers crossed for a Nick Cage multiversal Ghost Rider.
Oh
joining the
my
fight.
God. I've never seen that movie, but I would go back and watch that movie like right now if I knew that was happening. That would be so interesting to have Nick Cage come back, and he would totally do it.
Oh, yeah.
He would absolutely sign up for that movie. He did Kick-Ass as well. That was fun.
Small hint of Ghost Rider's flaming skull on this sticker in the elevator.
Oh, shit.
Then Steven returns home to a vast empty studio apartment, but the darkness hints that he's not alone. I love this shot of the aquarium, with the fish appearing as if they're floating in midair. There's also a map of Egypt on this wall, maybe showing that his character is a Nilophile.
What's that?
Oh, that's a word that I just made up that means someone who likes to study Egypt.
You mean like an Egyptologist?
Whatever, my name is better.
Your mom is better.
Nice one. Then we see our first look at the Moon Knight costume, which is stunning. I love how they incorporated the mummy bandages into the suit, because Mark Spector was resurrected from the dead. And it's also similar to the vision of Khonshu that we see here. And the mummy bandages costume was taken from the 1986 Moon Knight series, which also featured your mom. Now this mummy with the rook skull is how Khonshu appeared in the brilliant Warren Ellis run of the comic. It looks scary as hell as it comes toward him, maybe to possess him, or maybe to simply remind him of his vow to serve Khonshu. Hey, promises were made, get over here! I have theories about that I'll get into later in the video. In the elevator, we have yet another mirror. Then we see him walking through the museum after hours, which we now know is because he works there. Channel Heavy Spoilers pointed out that these statues in the background show the sun god Ra, the god Osiris, who is the god of fertility in the afterlife, and Anubis, the aforementioned god of death. And this golden figure in the background looks an awful lot like how Khonshu was depicted in the Marvel Comics. In fact, John Whitfield on Twitter points out that this is actually the god Horus, who links to Khonshu in certain aspects of Egyptian lore. Of course, the big thing to notice here is that his reflections don't follow him. They're working independently of his other self. In fact, if you look closely, you see they're working independently of one another. This is showing a manifestation of his multiple personalities, or at least of the multiple souls inhabiting his body. I mean, heck, the name Spectre actually means ghost. But also notice that we see the reflection of a croc.
I live on the ground. Y'all are just tourists.
Not that kind of croc, like these.
What the hell?
No, like the crocodiles found in the River Nile. There's another crocodile found later in the trailer on the old Motorola phone that Steven finds. So that phone is very interesting. It's an older model before GPS was mandatory on all cell phones. So this phone would be hard to track. It's just the sort of phone that a mercenary like Mark Spector would have used. In fact, the woman on the phone, who the subtitles call Layla, even calls him Mark.
Why did you call me Mark?
Now this seems like the other identity. Mark Spector has a hidden past as a mercenary, a past that was buried inside this other identity. Notice that the hole in the wall is shaped like a pyramid, and it was deliberately cut that way by Mark Spector to show the secret of this phone is tied directly to Egypt. And then we meet our villain, played by Ethan Hawke. Now, I think he's actually an amalgam of a couple different villains. The trailer subtitles call him Arthur Harrow. He was a minor Moon Knight villain, a former Nazi who experimented on people and turned them into his acolytes. But there were also rumors that he would be playing a villain called the Sun King.
Or maybe he's playing Mr. Mustard or Polythene Pam.
Or that, yeah. The Sun King worships the Egyptian god Ra, making him kind of the opposite of Khonshu, the god of the moon. Later in the trailer, we see people kneeling to him, which implies there's some kind of supernatural power at work. Now notice this ice cream truck on the left that we'll see again later. And the writing on it is in German. New Jericho Man and Sebwan on Twitter point out that this scene is taking place in Germany and is reminiscent of Loki forcing people to But in the Avengers, people kneeled involuntarily.
Right.
Here, they seem to be happy to kneel before Ethan Hawke. Now, right here, he sees his reflection in this scratched glass. This looks like the outdoor arena here, where we see empty seats behind him. The seats are set up all nice and neat, like they're waiting for some kind of service. Then, he kicks the hell out of this glass, splintering it right where his face is reflected. Again, a mirror symbolizing his fractured selves. A little later, we see him transform into Moon Knight at this same location. So I'm thinking that maybe this is an altar that's been set up as a kind of church service for the sun god Ra. And the reason the seats are empty is because the people won't arrive until dawn, so they can greet Ra.
Like the angels in City of Angels singing to the sunrise.
Yes, Doug, like that.
That movie has a terrible ending.
Yeah, it did. Good soundtrack, though.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't want the world to see me.
Yes!
Because I don't think that they'd understand.
Man, that's great. I would buy an album of you doing cover songs.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Anyways, we see shots of Steven in an institution.
This dog thing is genius.
Maybe he's even looking in another mirror while his reflection is standing still. And he's harming himself, just like the narrator in Fight Club.
Oh, man.
Now this shot of Mark running down a hallway, notice that he's got a shadow over him of a crescent moon, like the persona of Moon Knight is hovering above him waiting to take over. This is a storage facility that he's probably trying to access with the key that he found in his wall. Now in the comics, 3 priests of Khonshu spoke to Mark telepathically, basically inhabiting his brain, telling him to hunt down artifacts of their god. So this could be Khonshu sending him on a mission to recover certain totems of his power. Then we see him in the bathroom at the museum. Now this shot was teased in the last trailer where we saw a bulletin board with an Egyptian exhibit flyer. That's why I think this bathroom is in the museum. In the last trailer, we were able to see a pair of eyes skulking behind him. Now this could have been the god Khonshu or the creature that he beats up in the bathroom in this trailer. In the bathroom, they do that cool Citizen Kane infinity mirror shot to fully show all of his other selves, but they are now in sync in the moments before his transformation. To become Moon Knight, all of his personalities have to work together and become one.
That's
Notice
cool.
that we can see the very beginning of the mummy bandages of his costume forming here around his neck. And then we see the aftermath of a battle, or maybe the aftermath of Dewey Cox using the bathroom. He's in front of a shattered mirror which shows a busted vent from the ceiling. This vent is probably where the creature burst in from. And notice that you can also see his reflection on the floor. Another hidden mirror. There's also a lot of speculation on social media about what exactly this creature is. Some people think it's a werewolf since Moon Knight first appeared in the comic Werewolf by Night. But look at the head. It's obviously a jackal, just like the head of Anubis, the god of the underworld. So this could be a minion of Anubis, maybe transformed by Ethan Hawke's mad scientist villain, Arthur Harrow. Now New Jericho Man on Twitter points out that it looks like a monster on the cover of Moon Knight 2, a villain where Moon Knight fought Arthur Harrow. But more on that when I talk about theories in a second. Then we get this first full-on reveal, which is stellar. This and the final shot of him leaping across buildings looks like it's taken directly from the comics page. I'm so excited about this show. So now I want to talk about a few theories about what the heck is actually going on here, pulling from things in the trailer that I skipped over. First of all, I think this guy is actually named Mark Spector and that he has a real mercenary past. That years ago, he did travel to Egypt and had an origin just like we see in the comics. These shots of Oscar Isaac in Egypt are likely flashbacks of a vision Khonshu showed him when he was resurrected. But the show chose Stephen Grant as our protagonist because he's an easier guy to relate to than a globe-hopping mercenary. It also creates a mystery for us to solve. Just like Stephen Grant, we're all wondering what in the hell is going on here. So the hole in the wall with the keys and phone. We know that's Mark's phone because of Layla's call.
Oh my God, you're alive. What's wrong with you, Mark?
I think that's actually a very smart, clever move.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're discovering who he is with him.
Exactly.
He's just as clueless as the audience in some ways. You're vicariously living through that experience that you're watching.
Mystery is fun.
Yeah.
You know, like as an audience, I think we enjoy kind of picking up on the clues, and hopefully we're smarter than the character and like we figure it out before him.
I really like that approach a lot. It's almost like the first 45 minutes of The Matrix. Neo has no idea what the hell's going on, and you're learning with him what is actually happening.
Yeah.
Maybe Mark hid this phone in there as a clue for Steven to find, like the multiple notes that Guy Pearce leaves himself in Memento. In that movie, Guy Pearce's character suffers from a disorder that erases his long-term memory. He's constantly waking up in places, trying to figure out who he is and what's going on. So this show could borrow a lot from that.
It's funny that he mentions Memento, because I mentioned Memento when he had the gun in the truck.
Yeah.
Because in Memento, there's a scene where he's got the glass bottle. It's like, why do I have this? I'm not drunk.
Yeah.
But it was because he was in the middle of a fight or ready to fight somebody.
So remember the scene where everybody except Oscar Isaac kneels? Well, in the previous trailer, we saw Oscar Isaac wake up from a daze wearing this same outfit surrounded by unconscious people who look like that same crowd kneeling to Ethan Hawke, who I keep wanting to call Kevin Bacon because he has the same hair as Kevin Bacon in Tremors, and he didn't know how to use a hammer. No, he didn't. So my guess is that the bad guy either ordered people to fight Oscar Isaac or they were mind-controlled to do it. Then, Steven's other identity, the mercenary Mark Spector, took over. When their body was safe, he retreated, leaving Steven to look around in shock. Later in the trailer, we see him driving the same ice cream truck that was in that square. Like he beat these people up, then hijacked the truck. But he had to fight off some guys that were in the truck, so he became Mark Spector again. But then afterwards, the Steven personality emerges. So Ethan Hawke's character, the Sun King / Arthur Harrow, is experimenting on people just like he does in the comics. Except his experiments are maybe less genetic and more mystical, as he turns people into creatures that serve other Egyptian gods. Because he's trying to gain power for other Egyptian gods, Khonshu demands that Mark / Steven fulfill his vow to serve him and become Moon Knight once more.
That was great. I really enjoyed that.
I thought it was super cool how he brought up the parallel to Fight Club and the little bit of parallel to Memento. Those two films I have watched over and over and over again. Well, that Fight Club one is so obvious. I'm surprised I didn't think of it. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that you have this person who created this other persona that is trying to correct the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The thing that blew my mind was the motif about the mirrors. And I'm like, of course, that's so classic, you know, like in literature, in novels, in poetry, that is a very popular motif to kind of show struggles with identity and stuff. And so I really liked that he caught onto that and showed all the different instances where they were using that in the trailer and obviously in the show to represent Mark Spector's mind, just kind of fragmenting and his identity being disassociated and all that. That was so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a visual feast for Easter eggs and stuff like that, this Moon Knight. So it makes me even more excited to get into the show and like see those things in its full context and glory, you know?
Yeah, and I definitely want to brush up on my Egyptian mythology, all of that. I'm like, oh my God, I need to find some good books to read and, brush up on all that. It's so exciting.
I just want to say that I really appreciate his pacing, how informative it is.
Yes.
Because I feel like I got so much out of this and it didn't feel overwhelming. The information was delivered in such a way that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sort of piecing it together with the structure of the video, because he's sort of going, okay, we're going to talk about this at some point, so we'll come back around to that. And it goes through like this particular subject here, and then he comes back to it like he said he would, and then he dives into that. And I'm like, oh, like I feel like I'm actually like absorbing this. I appreciated not just how informative it was, but like some of the little comedy that was in there to sort of break it up.
Yeah.
Like with the dog.
I love the dog.
It's like slightly cringy, but it's also very adorable in how he's using that dog as a means of sort of just breaking up the flow. There's a nice comforting confidence to him, if that makes any sense. Like it's not too aggressive. It's just like, you know, he's just telling you, like, you know, casually sharing that information, and I don't know, you feel like you're learning something.
Yeah, and then like I love the other film references he adds as well that are completely random and just kind of support this idea that this guy watches a lot of movies and he remembers them and he knows a lot about films from the past, like however many decades.
Yeah, he's
know?
got the old school VHS tapes and DVDs in the background, which I think
He's
is pretty cool.
Obviously a cinephile.
Yeah, it looks like a video rental store. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon, all notifications, and vote this up. I'm Jabby Kuwait. This is
Achara Cook.
Peace out.